What's up everybody, George T from the Wagon here. This week we're going to install an electric fuel pump into a Type 1 bug. The pump that I use for any dual carb or even single carb application is a Carter P90091. This is a 4 PSI pump that does not require a regulator. It is a pusher, so you need to install it in the front in a VW bug, and in a bus it's going to go underneath your gas tank to push towards the engine. Little industry secret, guys, this is the exact same pump that CB and Impy put in a blister pack and triple the cost on it. So look this part number up online and get that sucker from other sources. It's the same thing. These used to come out of America. It's kind of a bummer. They're a Chinese pump now, but I've been using them for years, even in this Chinese format, and I have yet to have to replace one. A very obvious warning. We are going to be dealing with gasoline. Gasoline is flammable and explosive, so be very careful when you're working with tanks when they're pulled from the car. Be careful where you put it down. Be careful if you weld or anything by it. So just be aware we are working with a source of fire right here. This right here is a perfect example of what your underhood area should look like. Beautiful, organized, neat, and tidy. First order of business, we're going to pull this tank so we can have access to our fuel source. We're going to be doing two things on this car because it has a fuel line going through the passenger area under the carpet. We're going to eliminate that, and we're going to run a new fuel line on the outside of the pan. My first attempt is going to be to see if I can unclog the factory line. I'm not sure why it's not being used. I tried to blow air through it, it's not going. I'm going to see if I could put a throttle cable through it and if we can clean it. But let's get this tank out of the way. I've got one of these on the fuel line underneath, clamping it off. First order of business is removing the 4 13mm bolts that hold the tank in, and then disconnecting our sending unit. The breather line also needs to be addressed. Either you can remove it here and leave it in the body, or pull it out of the body and it'll come out with the tank. We got the 4 bolts removed and the gas gauge removed. I pulled the breather line out of the body, and I got this thing propped up with a block of wood. We're going to access, this is the secondary fuel line that they have in the car now that runs in the passenger compartment that I'm not happy with. So we're going to disconnect that hose clamp there and pull the tank completely from the vehicle. We got that tank pulled out now. And this is the line that they ran in the body. Now at least they got a grommet there. I am happy with that. I did a car recently where they had just punched through the wall and had rubber line running through the car on a fuel injected, turboed injected motor. It was the craziest stuff I'd ever seen. But this right here, not a bad install. I just don't like the fact it's in the passenger compartment with you, and if there is a problem, you get into an accident, gas is going everywhere, whatever the case is, it's just not safe to have it soaking in the carpet that you're sitting on top of. So we'll make a new line that's going to run in the exterior of the body. But like I said, I'm going to see what I can do with this one real quick. If I can unclog that, I'd much rather run the factory line. This isn't a high horsepower motor. That factory line can feed it plenty. I have a lot of bugs running on the factory line that aren't 2 liters with dual carbs. So I have forced into this an early solid throttle cable. There was a clog in the beginning, probably about maybe 3 inches in, and I've been spraying Berryman carb cleaner in here, and I have this going all the way out the back side of the tunnel now. So this throttle cable has gone through the entire thing. So you can see there's old fuel and rust in there. I have some liquid moly fuel system cleaner that I'm going to run through this, and then I'm going to pressure test it to make sure it holds pressure. And if it's good, we're going to use this original factory line. That's our better bet. Stick with the factory stuff. We're working on that factory line. I've gone through and I've cleaned it out. I now pressurized it with air, and we're making sure that it actually holds that air. So I'm going to give this about 5 minutes. I just need to make sure there's not an actual hole somewhere along the pan, like in the line itself. Just from seeing that, I'm telling you there's no hole. This thing, if it had a hole in it, would have lost pressure immediately. So it is holding pressure because this started at 0. We're all the way up to 10 psi. I have this on there, and I put the green block off on it just to make sure it doesn't bleed out from that side. And so far we're holding strong. So I'm going to give it 5 minutes, come back and check it. If it looks good, we're going to run with that factory line. So it's been about 10 minutes and we're still holding that 10 psi. So I'm pretty comfortable to say that the factory line is not compromised. We are going to do a quick breakdown of the parts that we're about to install here. Number 1 being the fuel pump itself. It's a Carter pump, part number 90091. It comes with the bracket for installing it. It comes with clamps, it comes with the fittings, your electrical fittings, all that stuff in the package. I replace it, I use all different stuff everywhere except for the clamps and the mounting bracket. I also replaced the filter. So for some reason, once they started manufacturing these in China, they are now a 3/8 outlet. And 3/8 is giant, if you're aware of that. So I get this from SoCal Speed Shop. I think this was, this is like another $8 right here for a 5/16 and 5/16. I get 5/16 fuel line from SoCal Speed Shop as well, made by Gates. And I get these vapor guard fittings over at SoCal Speed Shop. So on the bottom of the tank, we're going to remove the factory petcock and we're going to replace it with this. I get these from appletree.com. Directly bolts onto a stock bung on your tank and makes it a -6 outlet. Do not run the factory screen with this. I've found that out. They will leak. They'll just weep all the time if you run the factory screen along with this. So I just put their nylon washer in there and this, and usually it's trouble-free. This 90-degree vapor guard will go in the bottom of the tank, and that's what's going to feed our filter, and then the filter is going to feed the pump, and the pump is going to go directly into our standard fitting on the bug. In order to do that, we have a reducer here that's 5/16 on this side and 1/4 inch on this side. So we can drop it down to get a decent size fuel line that's not going to be over smashed to fit on there. Like you'll see people do that sometimes. They get a really big fuel line and they try to put on that factory size, which is about like this here, and they just have a lot of trouble with it, and eventually it will leak. So what we do is we reduce it down and we try to run a factory size line to the factory fuel line in the body. Out back we have a straight vapor guard fitting, once again from SoCal Speed Shop in Las Vegas. Lenny and Adam over there, the guys are great. This is going to go to our bulkhead, but when we come out of the pan, we're actually going to go into your regular old stock filter, and I use this as my reducer. So I'll have my stock line coming to here, and then we'll clip that end off and go on the bigger end there, connecting to 5/16, so it's 5/16, 5/16 here, going to the engine. That's a quick little breakdown of the parts that we are going to be putting on this. We've got to get this thing ready to install. So I take my Nip-X pliers. These are made for cutting metal. I'm going to get that guy off of there. So you can see fuel line from fuel tank is going to go, the way it was done before was going into the filter into the pump on the out. So this is our outlet. Now we've taken this off of there, and so we don't get any confusion, we know that our plug ends are the outlet. I'm going to take a Sharpie and just mark this with a big arrow so I don't get confused at any point in time during the installation. So that is the direction of our fuel. That'll easily wipe off with a little bit of alcohol, so don't freak out about that. This is what holds this pump in place. It's one of these right here. That's actually what comes with it. This is what comes with the CB ones. This is what comes with the IMPI ones. Like I said, those are the same exact piece as this. This is just a fraction of the cost when you get it from other places. That's not to dog out IMPI or CB, you know, they're in the business of making money. Can't get mad at people for wanting to make money. We're going to take our filter out of the package. I got the black one because I thought the black one would look a little cooler inside the car. So even a filter is directional. And this one specifies in. There's nothing on the back side that says out, but it does specify in. And if I know that, then I'm good. So we're going to be basically setting it back up the way it was, just with a bigger hose in between, and they're going to be on top of each other. Let's go get that set up inside the car so we can make some plans that way. All right, so this is about what we're going to set up here. Something real similar to that right there. Okay, so our line's going to come out and come in here, and I've put an arrow on this as well to make sure I'm staying directional. We're going to come out, come in here. That's going to drop down into that pump there, and it's going to get pumped into the factory line going back there. So what we're going to do is mark 2 spots. I'm contemplating doing one and sharing the bolt hole and have both of them mount to one, but that's going to be a lot harder on install, and it's going to take me an extra 5 minutes to put an additional nut rivet into it. So I think we're going to go with just doing the nut rivet, one for each of them. We're going to make an executive decision change on that right there. So I marked a little too high. These are a bunch of spot welds that show me where I'm double walled. So from this point down, I'm double walled. From this point, I'm single walled. I don't want to shoot through that and ruin the carpet on the inside. And then you also have a nut rivet on the firewall to carpet over. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move it below that line and then lower my pump a little bit as well. So for reference, we're going to mark out where those spot welds are here. My filter can still exist over that, but I want my nut rivet to come in somewhere around there. So we're going to bring it over a little bit. That will be the nut rivet for my filter. And I'm just going to move that one down from it, just to make sure we have room for the both of them. That's that right there. That will be the location of my 2 nut rivets. We're going to start with a 2.5mm drill bit, and then we're going to use the rotor cut. I've taken the extra precaution. There's a positive and a negative symbol embossed in that plastic, so I've transferred them correspondingly with marker to the exterior, so when it's mounted in place, I don't get them confused. We're going to pre-make our ground wire that's going to go to our chassis mount here, so it gets a good chassis ground on it. We're going to pre-make that before we actually install it there. So then we're just going to have to make fuel line, and when we finally get our power run up there, we're going to have to plug it into one spot right there. Take note, I talked about this in my wiring upgrade video. You see the dot right there. Take notice to what terminal you're using when you're making this wire. It cannot be a relay connection, it has to be the dimpled connection. There's our terminal with the dimple in it. That's what we want. The dimple indexes into the dot. That's our connection right there. All right, let's make our negative wire. It is not going to be very long at all. It's only going to be like maybe a 5-inch to 6-inch line. So that's about all we're going to need right there. Nice secure mount. You see it doesn't slide in and out of that bracket. I'm going to put some alcohol on a paper towel and wipe this off, just so we don't have any of those markings there. Pump is mounted, fuel filter is mounted. This is our inlet. I have an arrow down here. You can't see it from that angle, but where it says in right there. This, just like the pump, can't go anywhere. This is a really nice and secure way of mounting them. And it only requires one tool to remove it. There's no nut on the back side, so you don't have to have somebody inside, outside of the vehicle. I'm a huge fan of rib nuts. Here we have nice big sweeping fuel line there. We don't want anything kinked, forced, anything like that. So now I'm going to put my reducer in line here, and then I'm going to connect my 5/16 to the reducer there. Everything's now done here except for the supply line and our power supply. That I already know where it's at. It's underneath the seat. Now I got to run it all the way up front here. Figure out a clean way to do that. But I really like the way this came out. Very happy with it. Looks nice, clean, sanitary. We're going to give everything wiped down first before we leave here because we clean as we go. I've wiped down the lip where the tank's going to go. I've wiped on the firewall. Just basically got everything all cleaned up in this area that I've worked on. And now we're going to mess with the tank instead of discoloration around my rug. If I put this thing up higher, and you can see those trails coming off of there, his send unit leaks pretty badly right now. So I'm going to put this up on jack stands. I'm going to drain the tank completely because I got to put a new bung on the bottom of it, a new bung there, and I want to reseal that because if he fills it up all the way, this is going to be leaking into the passenger compartment of the vehicle. The smells just get overwhelming, so let's get both those items addressed. So I set the gas tank up here. I have it draining right now. Probably should have drained it while I was in the car. It would have been a little easier. But once we get this drained, we're going to pull this off. And we're going to pull the stock petcock off and put that dash 6 fitting onto it. This thing has been leaking for a long time. We have the tank drained, so now we're going to take the stock petcock off of there. Oh, that's lovely. There's a ton of crap. Let's get the camera in on that. That is like dang near solid clog full of junk. So because we saw that, we're going to end up rinsing the tank since I have his fuel already out of the tank. Alright, so that came off. This has obviously been broken for a while. I'm going to take that sending unit back off to see what we can find there, but let's just look at this. This was the fuel delivery system. That is fresh out of that tank. That thing was jam-packed, solid clogged. Unbelievable. And they had a supercharger on this engine at one point. They couldn't fix the gas tank, but it was supercharged. Alright, we're going to rinse out the tank. We're going to flip it over, put a catch can underneath it, and put some gas in it, and let it just grab everything and come out of an unfiltered hole wide open. We rinsed the tank out. It's all nice and clear now. So we're going to be putting this onto it. The white nylon goes in between this, and then this is going to screw directly onto the tank there. Then we have our dash 6 5/16 90 degree that comes off of there, and that's going to now connect to our filter we mounted inside the bug. I'm going to give it a quick cleaning with some carb cleaner, just to make sure our edges are nice and clean. Alright, we've got our dash 6 bung. Nylon gasket is inside of it. Got her snugged up. Our vapor guard 90 degree. And our tank fill is over here. So we know that when this is in the car, we want it facing this way. And it doesn't really matter. You can adjust this later on. Got that on there. Got our 5/16 fuel line. I'm going to cut a square edge onto it. Putting a clamp onto it. And that's it. Now we are going to put the tank back in. We've already changed the gasket on top, and now we got this petcock. We've rinsed out the tank. Let's install it now. Tank is back in. Gauge is connected. I still need to connect our feed line to our filter underneath, so we'll go down there and get that done. We'll raise it up. All right, there we have all of our fuel lines are connected, and all of my fittings are tightened on that petcock there. So now the only thing I have to do is run power up here and plug it into the bottom of that pump. We're coming out of the stock line again here. I'm using the stock 5mm line going to a fuel filter. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but right there on the bottom right is an arrow pointing in the fuel direction. And then we're going to make a 5/16 line with our straight vapor guard -6. That's going to go to that bulkhead you saw me install in previous videos. And that's going to finish out our actual fuel line installation. So that -6 fitting screws onto the bulkhead. We put onto that rear breastplate. Kind of eyeball where it's at. I'm going to cut it and get another clamp for it. That is the finished product of fuel line right there. You got clamps on this style. I don't put clamps on the German line because of the way it's designed. But I may actually put them onto this one, which, like I said, I normally don't. But because our pump is going to be, this will be pressurized on this side. Normally it's not. I'm most likely going to put a couple clamps on there. We got a bit of a pickle to work out here. The power supply for his fuel pump is underneath this seat back there. His carpet is glued down solid the whole way from front to back. There's a little strip along the side that I could tuck a wire into. I'm just not sure I'd want that. So here's the scenario that we're working off of. Our carpet is literally glued down everywhere, front to back. This is their power supply, which I actually like this. They did a decent job on this had they have used different color wiring every now and then instead of just solid reds and whites everywhere. This is my fuel pump fuse. I'm going to put a yellow wire on that side, and I think I found my solution. This is the fuel line they used to have running through the vehicle. I can't eliminate it because it's running under the carpet, so I'm going to utilize it as a piece of conduit, and I'm going to feed my wire through it, and this exits by the master cylinder where they had the fuel line connecting to it. So I'm going to give that a shot. If I can get the wire to feed through it, because that dude runs all the way down there, and you can see it there by the pedal assembly. Sorry for the poor lighting, but I'm going to give that a shot. Try and run a wire through that, because now it's just going to act as a piece of conduit. I'm going to blow through with air first, make sure there's no fuel. I've already done that once, but just to be assured of it. And then I'm going to pump some silicone into there, and we're going to start feeding some 14 gauge yellow wire into it. If I can get that to run all the way through and get it connected, I think we're going to be in good shape, because nothing's ever going to happen to that fuel line that runs parallel to the tunnel right there. This is the area I'm worried about, if I'm going to be able to make that turn right there. I've got some light on the situation now so you guys can see what I'm talking about. The copper line there is the former fuel line, now going to be my fuel pump conduit. I cut it there. I'm going to feed into that dude. So let's give it a shot, see how it goes. We've got our fuel pump and filter mounted. We got our lines to the front, going all the way to the rear. We fixed the line in the body, and we've connected it to our bulkhead in the back. So the very first thing that I do is, once I have power and know the pump is turning on and off, is I'm going to pressure test everything. So I'm going to kick the key on, and I'm going to make sure I have no visible leaks back here, and I'm making sure that my float bowls are not overflowing in the carburetors. First run of these dual carbs as well. Before I take it on the streets, I make sure we got functioning brakes. The pedal feels kind of low for forward disc brakes. We may have to do another bleed out on that. Surface streets at first. Squeaky rear suspension, that's for sure. So these are sway-away spring plates, and I'll put money that they didn't use the right lubrication on them when they put them in, or they used too little. So this thing's just going to squeak like nuts. couple items we had to address on Jim's after I got it back together. So we know we got that CB MagnaSpark crank trigger ignition on this dude, and when I set it up, I was accidentally a little too far over to the right, so that's where my initial problems were coming from. Marianne over at CB Performance sent me all the information I needed to get this thing tuned properly. So I had Eric DeYoung from Damn Volks come down, we hooked up a laptop to it, and we started driving. So once I made the proper adjustment on this, the timing was spot on, and then we were taking it for drives, doing power runs on it, and just seeing, make sure that the mapping and everything was working good for it. That CB MagnaSpark setup, the crank trigger box, is actually pretty handy. It has multiple preset tunes in it. So this used to be boosted, so the toggles were flipped for a boosted vehicle. So we got the toggles switched over to an actual dual carb setup. Made a world difference in this. So CB makes a great product. Once we figured out the little silly things that were going on with it, we didn't have any issues at all. I am a big fan of mechanical stuff. I'm not a big fan of electronics, but I tell you what, I'm converting. This is an awesome setup, and just driving it, the acceleration is so smooth and so nice. I don't think I can recommend this setup enough. Not only that, it really cleans up this engine compartment by getting rid of that distributor in the front. So I think we got everything down on this. Let's go over everything we did on this. We pulled the gearbox, we fixed fulcrum plates, we had to have Hansen transaxle drop the diff out and change out the spider gears for different side gears on it, put the gearbox back together, upgraded the rear brake lines, fixed the nose cone mount that was broken on this dude, new clutch cable, new accelerator cable, Bowden tube for both of those. We did the dual carb setup. We got the Berg linkage on this. We did the Ross Wolf pulley upgrade, painted the tins. We flipped out that seal in the back that was installed improperly. We put a skid plate on this dude. We fixed the front bearings. My goodness, man. The list goes on and on with this dude. Installed an electronic fuel pump up front the way it should be. But she's pretty dialed. When I say mechanical restoration, that's what I'm referring to. Like, we've gone through this thing front to back, and hopefully Jim has some trouble-free years of driving on this dude for a minute. Not to say there won't be issues and problems. It's still a Volkswagen. Things still happen, but you know, a lot of times after we do something like this, I won't see this customer for a very long time until they're coming back for their initial retune. Like in 500 miles, I'm asking Jim to come back in so we can actually get everything retorqued on the car and just check out the valves and whatnot, since we had the valve train off of it. So thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate you guys. We're almost at 2,000 subscribers. I'm so stoked on that. Probably gonna hit it by the end of the day today, I'm hoping. But thanks to all you guys out there that freaking spread the word about my videos, that share my videos. Thank you, guys. I can't say enough, man. Don't forget, October 3rd through the 5th in Las Vegas, Nevada, we got One Crazy Weekend brought to you by Let's Talk Does Podcast, the Wagon and Las Vegas Volkswagen Club at the Orleans Hotel and Casino. Friday, we got a meet and greet and a strip cruise. Saturday, early morning, car show. Saturday evening, the Let's Talk Dubs world famous poker run with your chance to win $3,000. That's $3,000. $1,500 cash for first place. Cash right there, greenbacks, handed right to you. So get out there, get registered at letstalkdubs.com, get your room rates before the rooms all sell out, man. They're only blocking so much for us, and we got a lot of guys coming up. We've had a lot of great response. We got clubs coming in that are already requesting spots to park together. If you are coming down to One Crazy Weekend and you're part of a club, get your boys together, get pre-reg, let us know you're a club. Let us know you want to park together, and we're going to make everything happen that we possibly can on our end of it to make sure that you guys are all together. But get to us early. Don't come to us day of show and say, oh, there's 25 of us. We don't park together. Probably not going to happen. I can tell you that right now. Get on letstalkdubs.com. Get your rooms. Get your registration. Let's get it happening, guys. Have a good one.